Hello again, everyone. This is Carol King, the developer of Custom Home Builder Solutions, also known as CHS. So we've just been through a couple of videos about all of the fields on the Add New Payables bill window that is, like I say, the hub of a job costing center for a home builder, where so much happens has to do with the bills that you receive, especially for the job costs, that take care of monitoring where your gross profit is heading, how much your job costs are over, etc. What I'd like to do in this video is go over some points I made in the last few videos and take one glance at each of those fields again and show you where they show up in all sorts of other places in CHS to save you and your team so much time. So I want to demonstrate why those fields are on that screen, how you're just entering things one time and avoiding making all sorts of spreadsheets. I'd like to show you how CHS is using all those fields and supplying them to various places all over the program. So we are going to go to Post New Payables Bills in just a minute, where I can get started showing you all of the things in the Post New Payables bill window that keep you from running around looking up things in file cabinets, routing bills around to various people to approve, posting job cost bills, and how all of the fields on the window are used to save you so much time. But right now I am going to go to the Active Jobs dashboard so that I can select the job Loveman, because I'm going to be posting a bill for that, and I'm going to open the Estimated Cost at Completion worksheet. What we're going to focus on is a bill that we've received from Big Buck Construction for actually $34,400, and I'll show you that over here. You can see that it's that amount. But by looking at this, if you come to the Estimated Cost at Completion, you're going to see that there is a purchase order for $32,600. And if you drill down on that purchase order, which is for a lower amount, and open it up, you can see that there's been a discussion with Glenn at Big Buck, verbal agreement to lower the per slab fee from $13.19 to $12.50. And there is a signed copy which you could drill down on and see the signature, but we'll close that for just a minute. So anyway, the field knew about this, issued the PO, and should check mark after issuing the PO to use the lower PO for the ECC instead of the budget. So notice how right now the estimated cost of completion is the amount of the budget, and if I check mark to use the PO instead, you'll see that the ECC changes to $32,600, and we are heading under by $1,800, which is a really good thing. So anyway, I wanted to point that out, and I wanted to leave this screen open so that we can just jump back to it. So I'm going to the Home main menu, Post New Payables and Charges, from scratch like we've been doing in the previous two videos, and I'm selecting Big Buck because I have that bill in my hand. So let's go to Create Job Related or any other bills. Now, in previous videos and some videos that we'll be doing specifically about general liability insurance and workers' comp, in previous videos about setting up vendors, etc., we have talked about this liability certificate, but the fact that I got a notice that it was over means that I could open the control docs. Let's just concentrate on the general liability, and I could look at the general liability insurance certificate, and I can see, by the way, I don't really get these because I'm not a builder, so I just faked one that says expired 3/28/21, and I'm doing this in April of 21, so that's why we got the notice. And so from right here you could send a request for a document. From that alerts window you could send a request for their document. You could also look at all of the vendor comments to see if you've already sent a request for the document or received one back. But if you do receive one back, let's jump back here again. I've shown you how you can open the vendor setup right from here. And if you did receive one, you could come in here and change the expiration date and also upload and attach the one that you received right here. If they send it back via our comments, if you send a comment to them requesting it and they send it back, you will see that they sent it back when you open CHS on the Launch tab, and there are some tools there to get it uploaded right away and to open the vendor setup. So that's one really fast thing that can happen over here where you become aware. I'd already demonstrated actually writing myself an alert about this. But anyway, let's go back to creating a job-related bill. So we have a bill, remember, for $34,400 that we received from him, and we have that in our hand. What I'd like to point out is how extremely valuable having purchase orders is. So if I put my cursor in the PO field and start typing Loveman, I see a PO for $32,600 for the slab contract, which right away can make me wonder about that bill that I've gotten, because this is the amount that drops in. What I'd like to do real quickly is show you, if I set this PO to none and I just put in the invoice number 45678 and the date of April 8th. We demonstrated before how a due date will be supplied based on how we set up the vendor. So we said bills would be due 10 days after receipt when we set up the vendor. So let's just pretend like I didn't select a PO and then I have that bill for $34,400. Maybe we aren't doing POs, so I've just got this bill, so I enter it, and it is very important to enter the bills as soon as you receive them, because I will show you how the ECC will change and start showing you things about overages, etc. when you enter unpaid bills, and makes it possible, if we upload right now a copy of this bill, and I have a folder for my job Loveman, and I've looked and I see the big buck invoice that we already have open, and I'm going to put a good description. Big buck invoice for Loveman slab. You should do that because this will be stored in your big file cabinet of things, and I'll show you opening that just for this job and cost code in just a few minutes. So it's good to put a good description in the title, save it, and then close it. Now you can see that we have an attachment that's going to get attached to this bill when I post it. But let's go ahead and try to submit this like this, and let's see what happens. It is pausing and it's saying you might be over budget, you might be over POs. We're not sure. Let's see. What we're going to focus on, it is saying we're over budget because it is actually a few pennies over, and if you drill down on that, you'll be able to see why and not worry about it if that is all you're worried about is the budget. And so if you don't have POs, you might still leave this here not knowing that some agreement was made in the field. But if I drill down, because we do have POs, it's saying over POs by that much money, $1,550. That $1,550 is being derived by a couple of things, posted costs already for this job, and just for this job and for the vendor. So if you look at this for a little bit, you'll see where it's coming up with the $1,550 that it's going to be over the POs, but we are alerted about that. So we might go, what is this all about? And drill down on the PO total. And because we have a purchase order, I can see that the purchase order was created as per our discussion, just like I showed you a minute ago, that Glenn at Big Buck has agreed, since we did our original budget, to lower the price per slab square feet to $12.50. So I would, in my case, since I have a PO, I would have been alerted about this, and I might not be posting just this $34,400. Let's go ahead and select the PO that would have prevented me overpaying this or doing something about overpaying it. Now we have $32,600. However, I do like to have a good trail, so I'm going to put the $34,400 back in here, and I'm going to copy this line. And as we saw in the ECC, the difference between the original budget and the PO was $1,800 when we just looked at it a minute ago. So I'm actually going to post another cost line, and I'm going to say adjust to PO. So now we have these two lines. But if you noticed, when I selected this particular PO, I got a pop-up that was telling me that there are notes from the field about this purchase order or about something about the purchase order. So I'm going to drill down, and that pop-up told me to go to PO status. And notice over here that there are some notes from the field. When paid, need to deduct $200 for site cleanup. So we get this message because we have POs, and the field was out there marking that the work is done on this, but when you pay it, we need to deduct $200 for site cleanup. So the other thing that I'm going to do, the reason I did this line right here is because I like to have a trail of what I'm doing. And we could show the home buyer how we're taking care of things and we didn't do the original thing. I'm going to just add a new line that doesn't have all these numbers and stuff and descriptions in it. And I'll select Loveman again. And the 2105 dropped in. And I guess I am going to keep it attached to the PO. So I'll do Loveman. It'll drop that 32,600 in again. What I'm doing is doing a minus 200. I'm going to keep it attached to the PO because that's where he wrote the notes. So let's put the 48 back in and the 45678. So if I'd copied the line, I would have had all this in. So let's say for site cleanup, which is what the note said. So now we're deducting 200. So back up here where we did the attachment and where we noticed things about this, we probably want to write a comment to the field. And I'm going to send it to the project manager, George Brown, and it will have a comment showing the bill attached to it. And I would save that, and then I could send it out to George Brown where he'd get an email, etc. But I won't do that right now because I'm on a demo. Let's close that. So now we can see there's also a green comment bubble here. So let's go ahead and submit this again and see what happens. We did not get any notice about being over POs or over the budget because we have brought the 2105 cost code for slab contract down under all of that. And it's very important. I'm going to post this as unpaid to pay later, and I'll show you why it's important to get those things posted right away to see it all over the place. So let's jump back to the ECC. Now I'd like you to notice how those actual costs are already in here, 32,400. And if you use the pencil edit icon right here, you can actually see quite a bit. You can see the comments that were made about it. You can see slab adjust PO minus 1,800. You can drill down on the bill that was for 34,400 on both these lines, etc. So you could see all of that. But by looking at that and looking at the PO, whoever is reviewing this ECC, when they drill down on that, can decide these costs are done and we're not going to get any more. So because of that other 200 that we deducted over there, we are now under by 2,000 for this particular cost code. I'd also like to show that the big boss or whoever can click this notebook icon and they can see the PO 32,600, etc. and look at the various work notes and stuff about it. And they can see those lines of entry for site cleanup, adjust a PO, and they can open a paperclip icon that will show them the bill that has been uploaded, etc., and see all the comments back and forth. If you click this comments bubble right here, they will see all comments about this cost code, all the way from requesting a bid or getting the bid in, or comments about the budget, etc. But also in the file cabinet, like I was talking about, I can see all uploads for this particular cost code and job. So you can see we started out with a bid request. We attached the bid request to the budget, slab contract bid from Big Buck. You can see the original bid, PO hard copy, which has been signed, like I said, so that you see the PO and that it is for 32,600, and as per our discussion, notes are there, and it's signed by Big Buck. So you can feel pretty confident that that's the only amount that you're going to pay them. So it's really important that you go ahead and get the actual costs in here so that you can drill down, determine, okay, we're done with these costs. Now it's showing over here that it's still outstanding because it is unpaid, which is pretty cool that it's showing us that. It knows that it's not paid yet, so it's showing that outstanding based on the ECC is 32,400 that has not been paid yet. We're not to that point in these videos yet. Now the other place I'd like to jump to from the Home tab is back to the Jobs dashboard, where the field can approve posted unpaid job costs. This is another reason to get those bills in right away, and I'm showing you how the job code field and the job cost code field, and the cost code field like 2105 is allowing all of these things to show up. Actual job costs are just costs, again, that have the job code and a cost code other than 0. And the field cannot see all your overhead bills and everything. They just see the job costs for their job. And so here's our Big Buck stuff. But right up here at the top, we're taking another 250 from them because apparently in another demo, I was showing how there was a broken pipe that Big Buck broke. And so United Plumbing is replacing it, and we're back charging Big Buck for that, which that's a whole other video about doing back charges, but that's cool that that's there. It's all been, that one's already been okayed because it was a while back in some other demo. But the field can actually drill down on all those same things, open the PO, look at the things here, look at the comment, notice that there's a green comment bubble, look at the original bill, all kinds of things, and then decide all of this is okay. Our smart bookkeeper has taken everything, so I'm going to approve these to pay by doing OK 1. Usually the big boss does OK 2. So you can see that here. So another good reason, I'm going to save those check marks, and I'm going to show you one more thing on the home main menu, and that's the owner review. So the owner gets to see all the active jobs. Here's a list of everything and the ECC and lots of stuff to drill down on, but that ECC can't be calculated unless you've entered the bills and it was posted as actual cost is done, etc., to keep the owner very aware of where the profit is heading on this Loveman job. You can drill down and see how the price is being recalculated. I've showed that in several things, but this is a cost plus markup job, which I'd like to really emphasize because we're going to look at something in a second. Because over here under Loveman, notice that we've only received, this is how powerful CHS is about tracking cash by job. We've only received 20,000, but we're showing open payables bills right now of 46. So we're short to pay those bills. If you drill down on those payables bills, look how you see that big buck right on top, and what we've selected to pay and what we've not selected to pay yet, or whether they're paid or unpaid. They are all unpaid right now. And that's why we have that total. And they can see this, and somebody, he can say, we need to get a draw right now, or I'm sure maybe the bookkeeper's on top of it already, who knows. There are other places to look at the cash available by job other than the owner review screen. But see how important it is to just get those bills in right away, because it's affecting estimated cost at completion, affecting where the gross profit is heading, and affecting showing how much bills are out there, and affecting whether the field can just go ahead and look at the bills and get them approved at the end of every day, instead of having a big stack of bills, etc. So I really promote entering, and I really promote that it is really valuable to have a purchase order to keep you from overpaying if you make an agreement after doing your budget, etc. Plus it makes it really easy to enter bills. Now I'd like to talk for a second about that draw request, so I'm going to go home, and that's another reason to have all those costs posted right away. So let's prepare a draw request. And let's say we're going to prepare a draw request for the home buyer for Loveman. Shows that it is a cost plus markup job. And when I click this, it's going to ask me what kind of draw worksheet do I want. There are other draw worksheets for fixed contract where you're using percents instead of the actual costs. But because this is a cost plus markup job, the type of draw request is going to go look for actual costs that have been posted and not drawn yet to include on this draw request. But there are two more fields when you're entering that bill that are important, and we went over in the last videos, is you give it a GL date for when it's going to be posted, and you give it a due date. So maybe for some reason you only want to do a draw for things through the end of the last month for whatever reason. That's important, that the cutoff date, and maybe only for things that are due through then also, or for whenever. So I'm going to click this to continue to the next step for a minute, and you're going to notice that all we have is the big buck construction in and out for back charging, and we don't have the bill for big buck yet because we did some cutoff dates, draw cutoff date March 31st. So that's how important getting the right date and the due dates in if you're operating like that. We're going to start over. And we're going to allow all of them. We're not going to change these dates. The due date will come in like a year from now, just so you don't have to mess with them if you just want all undrawn costs. So all of them here are here. All of them are check marked. The big buck is here. But if you want to uncheck some of them, not to include in the draw, you can. But you can see how important it is to have all of them here. Since this is a cost plus markup job, we are really interested in this number that is being calculated. Now there's another field, remember when we went over in the previous things, that shows up when you're entering bills. And I talked about it, and it is a markup percent that gets attached to the bill that you enter. Now notice these are all 25% right here because the budget was marked up for 25%. I do see that this one is actually not marked up yet, and it should be. So what I'd like to show you is I can mark up costs. It's probably because I entered that before I had something in the budget. So I'm going to update the markup percent on all undrawn actual posted costs to match the markup percents on the job budget. Now we have that supplied. So if you're entering a bill way before you actually have a budget, or you overlook the markup percent is empty when you enter that bill, you have a quick tool to mark up costs. But it's really important as you're entering those bills to pay attention to the markup percent that CHS drops in. And if it doesn't drop one in, you might want to type one in as you enter the bill. But you still have a way to go ahead and deal with that if you need to. So anyway, now we have $58,562, so it's a good idea to just review those markups. Be sure again that you post them. So we'll continue to the draw worksheet, and you can drill down on various things, see the detail of the costs, etc., completed costs, etc., but it is doing it at the marked up amount, you will notice. I'm going to go ahead and store, print, and save the draw request because I don't want to take up too much time in this video, and I'll be right back. I've already done the draw request, and I'm saying yes, post the draw request. So now you're going to see a line for it, and as you do more draws, this is draw 1, you'll see lines for the draw requests that you've done. But one really cool thing is that you could open the draw document right here, open the stored PDF, and see that draw request. So you can see that the costs to date are the marked up costs for that slab contract, and that's what we're drawing. We come down here to see some totals for what we're drawing, etc., etc., and we can close that. And another neat thing about cost plus jobs is that you can drill down to the cost detail. Quite often when you do a draw request from a home buyer on a cost plus, you have to provide them the detail of the costs. So you might, they probably get to know what the original cost is and the marked up amount. So you might want to do costs and marked up with attachments so that you could send it to PDF, open it with your own reader. You'll notice that attachment for Big Buck, if I clicked it right now, it's active on a PDF, it would open the uploaded copy of the bill that we had. So now the buyer could see on here that we're adjusting to a PO and that we're actually not paying the whole $34,400, so they should be really, really happy. So I wanted to make a point about how important it was that you get that bill in, because the owner can see what payables are out there, the field can see what payables, get them approved, and they can be included in a draw request that we are trying to do. All of those are available because of the job and cost code that you selected when you entered that bill, and I showed you how the date and due date can be important when you're doing a draw request based on your various things. I'd like to show you one more thing, that if we receive the draw, you can check mark that you received that draw from them. You can also search for draws received or not received for all jobs for a wide range of dates, and you could check mark to see just the ones that are no, and we have some really old ones here that are no, but you could see the ones that are still open right there and not received yet. So I'd like to go home, and I'd like to go to unpaid payables, and I'd like to open unpaid payables, and I'd like to open the big unpaid payables that the bookkeeper might be opening to select bills to pay in a check run. That's not really what this video is about, but we're going to go down and we're going to take a look at our Big Buck. These are by vendor. And you can see this green 1 over here under cost plus draw. By the fact that it's green, it means it's been check marked that the draw is received. So that can maybe, including these check marks that it's been okayed, cause the bookkeeper to say, let's pay all of these. Continue to update the check marks. And you can see that those are all checked now. Because we're fine with everything that we see, the bookkeeper can still be drilling down. The big boss could also put an OK2 in here. You can use the OK1s and OK2s for whatever you like. You can also select groups to pay, and you can say I only want to see the ones that have OK1 and OK2, or just the OK ones by putting yes, yes, and the OK2 to select. Or another very important thing about the due date that you enter, if you pay attention, is that you can tell it to select bills to pay only through a certain due date if you like. And so then if you did that, it would look for everything through this due date that you selected and check mark those to be included to pay. You can do a search, by the way, for ones that are selected to pay, submit the search, and then just do a report of the ones selected to pay. It is a search results report, so you can see how much you've selected to pay right there. You can also see that over here, all bills selected to pay, boom, without all that stuff. I just wanted to show you all of that stuff is so important that you pay attention to it. Now, if you'll remember, when we were entering bills for SunWest Tile, we were splitting the bill from SunWest Tile between labor and turnkey. And that's another field. If you go back here to post new payables and charges, and I'll just do SunWest Tile and open it. I'd like you to go back to the previous video and remember that we were entering two lines for the bill for SunWest Tile, and we selected materials for one of the lines, materials, cost type, and we did another line and we selected labor. That is important. That field, cost type, is important when you're doing a general liability audit report. So if we close this and we close this and we go to the home and we could also type general liability insurance audit right there if we want. We could have selected it under the vendors there. So I'm just going to say I'm just playing like my policy period is just this year or something. So I'll do it through today. That's not what it would be. You'd have a full year. So I'll click the General Liability Audit button for that period. And what opens will be a list of all bills for vendors that are marked that general liability insurance is required, paid between the dates that you put in here. It is not including entries with the cost type of sales tax that CHS created that I talked about in previous things. So that's where the cost type is important for the sales tax stuff. But if we take a look at SunWest Tile, you're going to see that we did split into labor, materials. Now Clayton is in turnkey and we haven't paid big buck yet, but a cost of framing is in labor. So there is a report that those general liability auditors like, which is vendor payments summed by cost type. And all of our people are expired because I'm in a demo thing and I don't go update them, but it would probably say yes and when it was expired, which is a better date. But anyway, you can see how important the labor and materials being separated is versus something that just says turnkey, where the insurance auditor might try to estimate what the labor was. So you should try to get people to give you a breakdown of the labor and materials as I was talking about before. And I wanted to show you this because that's where you save time from doing all kinds of spreadsheets to figure out labor and material if you watch it while you're entering the bill. Now let's just take one last look at the home from scratch. Let's look at the screen again to see what other time it's saving us. So we've talked about the importance of the job, the cost code, and I'll talk about the importance real quickly in a second about the department that drops in, and we've gone over how you can attach a department to a job. But you can get a cash flow by department, you can get income statements by department, you can drill down to some detail, etc., see how much cash or profit you've had for a certain department. So it's really important that you watch this field when you're doing it. The invoice number, we went over it. It's if you're looking at bills, previous bills, and you have an invoice number, you should have the right one here because you can search the ledger of your various vendor transactions for that. Now, of course, the general ledger account number is extremely important for where things show up on your financials, on general ledgers, where you'd be looking for things. And hopefully your accountant has helped you set up a default GL number for whatever vendor, if it's AT&T, maybe a telephone expense, or for this vendor, 1430, and or, as I showed in the previous things, attaching the GL number you'd like to drop in for job costs for whatever kind of job it is. So if it's a remodeling job, maybe instead attached to that job, you've got cost of sales remodeling drop in here. The description is extremely important. You could see how I could read stuff about that on those other screens, so you shouldn't get lazy. CHS, if you haven't set up a default description for the vendor, will drop in no description right here, which could be really frustrating to anybody drilling down and looking at lists of job costs or accounts payables bills, etc. In the previous videos, we also talked about setting up a default 1099 status for the vendor And we showed how if you forgot to say that this vendor should be getting a 1099 by selecting NEC 1099 in the vendor setup, you can go change it and then run a thing to update all the bills that had none in here because you hadn't set it up. Again, 1099s are prepared based on every individual entry and totaling them that were paid during the year and were marked that a 1099 is required on that entry, because there are times when maybe you don't want this particular bill to be included on a 1099. I think I've belabored about how the markup percent is really important for cost plus markup draws especially, and also some other reports, just seeing how much this is marked up, this bill, in case you're using it some other way. We went over the quantity and the unit price. Most of the time you leave a 1 and you just put the amount of the bill here. But if you're wanting to break things between jobs, you can use like a 0.25 and then copy it 3 other times and split it by fourths. Just put the unit price in, the total unit price, and split it by fourths. And I went over the tax percent and how CHS will post that in a separate line from this line so that you can go do sales tax reports for the home buyer based on the fact that CHS is going to post that second line with a cost type of sales tax. And then of course, again, all of these other tools we've been over several times in this set of videos that will keep you from running around looking up things, routing bills around. Like I said, again, I'm going to repeat myself that all these fields may look a little different from some generic software you're used to, but by filling in these fields and paying attention to them, you don't have to go enter this stuff on spreadsheets anywhere. CHS is getting it based on the job, based on the cost code. It's combing the database and can just find all that stuff for you and save you a whole lot of legwork, a whole lot of worry, and a whole lot of time. So thank you for watching.